it the wrong way.
This throws all sorts of issues, legal issues as well, commenting on it because it might develop over the next couple of weeks and days. But
we never imagined the day would come when Tyler Perry, the tireless mastermind hailed for turning a once-abandoned army base into the crown jewel of Black Hollywood, would suddenly be scrambling to hold the walls of that glittering kingdom together. Yet here we are, breathless, watching the first splinters crack across his billion-dollar empire. Once we saw him shaking hands with presidents, doling out inspirational advice on late-night couches, and hoisting statuettes in front of roaring crowds. Now we find ourselves whispering about closed-door meetings, NDA envelopes, hushed phone calls at 2 a.m. How did the man who built 12 sound stages large enough to swallow rival studios whole wind up cornered by allegations so chilling that insiders are comparing them to the downfall of that other fallen mogul, the one currently pacing a Brooklyn cell?
There have been some assault claims made by him. It's a chap called Derek Dixon, and it's a $260 million lawsuit. And I'm going to say it's interesting because he is Lilibet's godfather. He revealed this on the Netflix show. He appeared as a character witness for Harry and Meghan in their 6-part show.
We lean in because the claims against Perry aren't just anonymous online chatter. They come stamped on official court filings, splashed across network crawls, echoed by voices we once trusted as Hollywood's ultimate truth-tellers. Actor Derek Dixon didn't sue quietly. He detonated a $260 million lawsuit that reads like a thriller script gone rotten. Coercive sets, whispered career promises, bare-bones trailers that doubled as alleged pressure chambers. We shiver when we picture the hallway lights of the Oval flickering, Dixon's text alerts pinging, and the unspoken threat of your character could suddenly vanish next season, hanging heavier than any stage prop. The man claims he walked away from a race and a writing gig just to escape. And his final text to a confidant reportedly read, "If my agent asks why I am missing, tell them to check Atlanta first." Still, one lawsuit alone doesn't topple a titan, right? Perry's attorneys were quick to label Dixon an opportunist hunting a quick settlement. So why do we feel that uneasy churn in our stomachs? Because only hours after the suit became public, long-buried whispers of a casting couch hidden inside Tyler Perry Studios resurfaced. Stories first floated by terrified extras and then amplified by marquee names who, until now, only spoke in cryptic clues. Suddenly, murmurs of a private audition suite, tucked behind a locked door inside Stage 4, rushed back into focus. We picture that dimly lit corridor, the thick curtains, the hush every time a young hopeful walked out wide-eyed, clutching a script that was never part of the shooting schedule.
I'm telling you about it.
Here's where the dam truly begins to break. Cat Williams, forever the unfiltered jester, unloaded months ago on that viral podcast. "I had to turn down $50 million to protect my integrity," he bragged, his voice equal parts swagger and warning. At the time, many of us thought he was spinning tall tales. But now, those words ring like a prophecy. Williams doubled down on stage just last week, joking that certain producers wanted more than a punch-up, and hinting that some billionaires in Atlanta hosted gatherings with invitations too slippery to print. A comedian's hyperbole? Maybe. Yet when his offbeat jokes suddenly line up with legal filings, we get goosebumps. And let's not forget Terrence Howard, another Hollywood survivor whose cryptic references to power struggles Black men face in this town once felt abstract. His recent sit-down with a popular podcast took a darker turn. Howard recalled producers staring at him like prey, then dropped the dagger we can't shake. When you give up your manhood, you don't get that back. He never named Perry. He didn't have to. The internet connected dots before breakfast. Within hours, Howard's quote trended next to screenshots of Tyler Perry texting Dixon about guiltless intimacy. 2 stones, 1 reputation suddenly wobbling.
That would certainly be helpful, in addition to the text message evidence that we have. Sometimes victims don't want to come forward, right? You're talking about a rich and famous individual, and look at what's happened. Perry's lawyer came out and said, this guy's lying. This is a shakedown. This is extortion, right? They always go after the victim. And we don't know if the allegations are true in this case or not, but very few harassment cases are reported or litigated, and often...
We rewind the timeline. Tyler Perry, by every measurable metric, has been unstoppable since he first donned that gray wig and birthed Medea. He sold out theaters, launched hit after hit, bought a former military base the size of Manhattan Central Park, named sound stages after cultural icons, and championed rising Black talent who had been ignored by the coastal gatekeepers. Disney, Warner, and Paramount combined can't match the acreage of his studio. We used to marvel at how he scribbled entire seasons on his private jet, hammered scripts by himself, shrugged off union writers because nobody else writes my stories. Back then, it was legend. Today, that same legend feels like a glaring spotlight on a man who may have enjoyed too much power, too little oversight. When we probe deeper, we discover this story doesn't sit in a neat silo. It oozes into the broader, murky ecosystem once ruled by other fallen moguls. Remember the raids on Sean Combs' mansions last year? The seized baby oil shipments? The FBI files murmuring about freak-off parties? The surveillance footage of hotel hallways that made social media gasp? Howard's bizarre Diddy anecdote, getting stared at while music played in silence, felt like a Hollywood horror short. As Combs awaits his RICO trial, we ask ourselves whether Atlanta's Golden Boy could face a similar reckoning. Is this the moment when all the private islands of misbehavior finally float to the same shoreline?
They were referred to me as Wild King Nights. And what a Wild King Night was when him and a guest would go to a hotel room or be at his home, his bedroom, and they would have intimate gatherings. I would have to go and prep that hotel room, which consisted of baby oil Astroglide.
We talk to insiders, hairdressers, lighting grips, background actors on sisters, and they paint a picture of a studio where loyalty is rewarded with life-changing checks and dissent is swiftly written out of scripts. One former script supervisor tells us she saw assistants sprint to lock up phone cameras anytime Perry strolled onto stage 7 with an unannounced visitor. Another crew member claims he was asked to sign a fresh NDA every time a late casting meeting popped up after midnight. A production driver swears he once ferried a rising influencer to a gated side entrance at 2 a.m. The same influencer who later posted cryptic messages about losing yourself for a dream role. Are these dots or coincidences? We can't ignore the pattern.
Well, the things that I experienced with him were monster-like. That stuff almost destroyed my life.
Then there's the new documentary rumor creeping through editing bays, Maxine's Monster, Surviving Tyler Perry. According to tea-spilling bloggers, producers have spent months interviewing alleged victims. The teaser poster features an empty director's chair overlaid with names of men we've seen, flashing easy smiles on red carpets: Christian Keys, Lance Gross, Alfonso Ribeiro. No one has confirmed their involvement, but we notice how quickly Perry's legal team fired cease and desist letters threatening astronomical damages. Funny thing, those letters haven't stopped at the editors. We hear even small gossip channels have received terse warnings simply for mentioning the project. That's how scared the camp is of this narrative snowballing. Of course, not everyone is throwing stones. Some former castmates post late-night tweets defending Perry. He changed my life, never saw anything shady, keep your heads up. We weigh that against Monique's scorching revelations that she secretly recorded an apology call with Perry, only for him to backtrack when he learned the tape existed. She claims he offered to meet if her husband stayed home, and she apologized first. She didn't bite. We recall how Monique once shouted, "F you Oprah, F you Tyler," on stage, the crowd half cheering, half gasping. Back then we wondered if she'd lost it. Now her fury feels less like an outburst, more like early warning.
You know, there's a short life in
Why do you think that is with the creative side?
Well, because losing out money, you got to take. You're going through so much to try and deal with life.
What about Spike Lee, who once dismissed Madea as buffoonery? Ironically, Perry honored him with a soundstage. Today, Lee remains publicly cordial, but we sense the professor filmmaker is watching this scandal with pursed lips, as if waiting for history to vindicate his skepticism about unchecked creative empires. Meanwhile, Perry's PR machine works overtime. We scroll official statements insisting Dixon's lawsuit is a shakedown, that the studio supports equality, that no formal complaints were ever filed. Privately, executives whisper about contingency plans, halting the White House set drama shooting schedules, rerouting streaming exclusives away from BET+, pressing pause on that proposed AI production pipeline. One network insider tells us insurance underwriters are quietly reviewing morals clauses. Those are the memo keywords that keep corporate bankers up at night. We hover over Atlanta's skyline and glimpse the old Confederate base turned dream factory. We remember how Perry proudly pointed out the former slave quarters on the land and said, "This is built on their backs." Powerful statement then, haunting now. If even a fraction of the alleged coercion happened inside those walls, we're staring at a cruel twist of legacy.
Yeah, lawyers can say all sorts of things. Really, ultimately, what matters is what they ask the jury for. So they can ask for less or more during closing arguments. So I usually put that aside. It gets a lot of good headlines, but I can't imagine this case being worth 9 figures. Sexual harassment is wrong. No one should.
We're not naive. We know Hollywood devours scandal. Each fresh allegation adds another zero to clickbait headlines. But something feels different here. Perry's core audience, largely church-going Black women, once defended him fiercely. Now social media prayer circles are asking tough questions. DMS leaks screenshots of questionable texts, and when congregations whisper about forgiveness after accountability, you can practically hear the box office projections plunge. Terrence Howard's words echo again. When you give up your manhood, you don't get that back. We ponder whether the same applies to brands. Once trust is forfeited, can any heartfelt apology restore it? Cat Williams certainly doubts it. He reposted a meme hinting that big-time moguls always snitched on everybody when the handcuffs clink. Fans laughed, then gasped, realizing how his joke about baby oil-laced party favors suddenly sounded less like stand-up and more like a deposition preview.
Are you surprised by the evidence that's already coming out in the criminal trial?
No, I'm not surprised. I experienced some of those things. Witnessed violence.
We replay Derek Dixon's alleged trailer incident, the pinning to the wall, the frozen moment, the quick escape. We picture the weight of career dreams clashing with fear. We feel the sting when Dixon claims he finally moved across the country thinking distance would end the barrage of late-night messages, only for the text to grow more persistent. And that gut punchline, what will it take for you to have guiltless intimacy? A single question that stops us in our tracks. Outside the studio gates, Atlanta crews hustle, as usual, but every coffee break features one subject. Will the king step down or dig in? Some predict settlements and silent gag orders. Others foresee an empire fire sale, buyers circling to scoop up the largest production campus east of Hollywood Boulevard. A veteran line producer shakes his head, telling us on background, if they call for depositions, half this town will be subpoenaed. The fear isn't just for Perry, it's for everyone who might be asked what they saw and when.
Dishonest, violent, horrible. A promiscuous swinger who lied to and cheated on multiple partners. Incredibly, that's how Sean Diddy Combs' own lawyers described the billionaire music mogul, currently facing serious trafficking charges in a New York court.
We glance at the calendar. It's June 25th, 2025. The heat in Georgia feels heavier than usual, or maybe that's the tension rising from every newsfeed notification. We know the first hearing is weeks away. We imagine camera trucks lining the courthouse, former assistants clutching subpoenas, and network CEOs speed-dialing crisis consultants. We picture Perry pulling up in that signature black Escalade, Medea's ghost lingering behind him, taunting him with we struggle to reconcile the man who gifted scholarships to underprivileged students with the figure accused of turning a dream studio into a coercive labyrinth. We remember how he once paid grocery bills for entire supermarkets during a lockdown, how he flew displaced families away from hurricanes. Those philanthropic headlines are now sandwiched between court filing updates and talk show panels, dissecting intimate exploitation in Black entertainment.
Afraid of coming forward. They've been afraid of what he could potentially do to them within the industry, what he could do to them professionally, maybe even personally. And so yes, it's been a dark secret they've held on to for a very, very long time.
And as we pull every thread, the tapestry widens. Monique's simmering resentment, Lee Daniels' past distancing, Oprah's strategic silence, the swirling cloud that earlier swallowed R. Kelly, Bill Cosby, and now Diddy. We start to wonder if 2025 is the year every untouchable icon faces the music. Will Perry be the next headline scroll that reads "Mogul Pleads"? Or will he orchestrate the comeback of the decade, brandishing proof that every allegation was a carefully choreographed heist aimed at his fortune? We admit we're torn. We grew up on Medea's outlandish cackle for better or worse, but we also believe survivors when their stories echo the same chilling beats. Right now, the internet is dividing into camps. Team Tyler, Team Truth, and no one knows which side will win. We end tonight poring over the newest court document leak, highlighting every reference to that alleged secret audition room. There's a diagram with Stage 4's blueprint, an arrow showing a small windowless annex never listed on official studio tours. Rumor says it's being demolished as we speak, rebranded as storage. We read We shiver, we refresh another feed.
If you're the defense, and do you look at that he didn't file as a John Doe and say, look, this is proof that this was a shakedown, which is the term that they've used?
Look, it's interesting. Obviously, the fact that he didn't file as a John Doe, that's not an argument that the defense can make. But really, and I've sued a lot of celebrities. I'm sitting here in Hollywood right now. I've represented some, but sued a lot more. So I've handled a lot of cases like this. Most of the time, the victims will come in, and when I explain what a lawsuit entails, they have pause.
We remind ourselves that this is only the beginning. The iceberg's tip has barely breached the surface, and below, an ocean of unanswered questions churns, waiting, cold and vast, for the next crack to echo across Atlanta's glossy skyline. And as that echo gathers force, we can practically feel it, rattling through boardrooms in Beverly Hills and vibrating under the manicured lawns of Montecito, where Oprah Winfrey's estate sits like a fortress of inspiration. Everyone knows she and Tyler Perry share a bond forged in primetime ratings and billion-dollar ventures. But tonight, even her golden aura is flickering in the crossfire. Insiders whisper that a hush-hush understanding, some call it the promise, others the Pinky Pact, was struck years ago. He would keep feeding family-friendly content to her network, and she would leverage her stamp of approval whenever storms hit his shores. Now, with subpoenas looming, that alleged pact is reading less like sisterly support and more like a strategic shield, designed to muffle messy testimonies before they reached morning talk shows. We watch Oprah's social feeds and see motivational quotes about healing and truth, yet there's a glaring silence about the lawsuit exploding in her friend's backyard. The longer she stays quiet, the louder that silence roars. Is it cautious diplomacy, or is she buying time to scrub her own archives for red flag emails?
Did you ever have the opportunity where you got invited and you said no to it?
Hell yeah.
What was the consequences when you said no?
Puffy invited me for weeks, asking me to come and teach him how to, wanted me to be his acting coach for a while. Go there and he's sitting around just looking. I'm like, okay, what's the material you want to work on? He's just looking at me.
We dig deeper and find a curious thread. 3 months before Derek Dixon filed, several junior staffers at Harpo Productions were reportedly ordered to review every interview clip featuring Perry, flagging anything that could be misconstrued. One source claims the directive came with strict instructions not to discuss the assignment outside a locked Slack channel labeled simply TP Archives. And then there's the sudden cancellation of a planned Super Soul Sunday episode where Perry was set to unveil a new line of wellness retreats. Officially, scheduling conflict; unofficially, risk mitigation. We reach out to Oprah's team and get the standard no comment, but a mid-level publicist, voice trembling, tells us off the record, everyone's walking on crystal shards. One wrong step and the illusion shatters. While the talk show queen tiptoes, Hollywood analysts are re-examining the very bones of Tyler Perry's studios. On the surface, the campus is a utopia. Star-shaped street signs honoring icons, a replica White House glowing under cinematic moonlight, free haircuts and meals for crew members. But according to a veteran location scout who spent 6 weeks on the lot, certain buildings never appear on official maps. He swears Stage 13 was finished 18 months ago, yet remains conspicuously unbooked by outside productions. The rumor? It houses a luxury screening room where only select guests, think producers with private jet tail numbers, preview rough cuts of special audition tapes before deciding who gets bumped up to series regular. We try to verify. Security logs list 13 as under renovation, yet supply receipts show shipments of Egyptian cotton linens, imported mood lighting, and silent close locks. Renovation for what, a spa?
That was all the people that went to the Puffy parties. That was all the people that did all those things thinking that there was never going to be a consequence for what they were doing. Got punked out and pimped out by some greater desire. You shouldn't have a greater desire than being a man. So I believe that's a big problem with a lot of the actors out there because they get fluid, and next thing you know, once you go fluid, it's gone.
Meanwhile, first-hand stories trickle from performers who once dreamed of seeing their names on those backlot street signs. A former daytime lead on one of Perry's dramas tells us she was instructed to remain camera-ready 24/7 while shooting at the studio's on-site hotel. At first, she thought it was standard showbiz hustle. Then she realized talent wranglers were confiscating personal phones at check-in and routing room calls through a shadow extension labeled Concierge 2. I felt like I'd stepped into a velvet-lined prison, she admits, voice cracking. She left the show after season 2, citing exhaustion. Publicly. Privately, she claims a producer hinted her storyline would end in a fiery car crash if she asked too many questions about call time changes. We run numbers and see a startling pattern. Recurring cast attrition across multiple Perry projects spikes around episode 19 each season. That's precisely when renegotiation windows open. Official statements blame creative refresh, yet a quiet exodus wave suggests a deeper rot. For every actor who publicly thanks Perry for life-changing paychecks, 3 more lawyers are drafting non-disparagement clauses in dim conference rooms, ensuring their clients never disclose why they left. And DA culture is so thick that one labor rights advocate calls the studio Silicon Valley in a gospel cloak.
I've lost businesses because I don't bend over in that way. I don't compromise. I don't play roles. I don't kiss a man. I don't do that because the man card means everything.
Public faith, however, thrives on storytelling, and Perry has always been a master at spinning adversity into uplift. But we revisit his quote from a Vanity Fair feature, African-American enthusiasts are extremely loyal individuals who support you through thick and thin, and we wonder if those same supporters are feeling the first jolt of betrayal. Social media threads once brimming with prayer hand emojis now feature questions about transparency funds, safe set protocols, and whether the new interns have emergency hotlines that bypass studio HR. Influencer book clubs, once obsessed with Medea's life lessons, pivot to podcasts dissecting power imbalances. Even church newsletters are sliding a side-eye meme into the announcements. Be sure your deeds will find you out, even in a soundstage.
Are you done with Hollywood because of this specific
I'm
reason?
still working. I still, I haven't made the money necessary to do all of the other stuff. So I still have to go and do the Chitlin circuit. I still have to do the job that I need to. But eventually, I've done what I set out to do, which was to redefine the universe. I've proven what I've set out to do, and that's why I have all the patents. Whether they evaluate it or not, that's up to them.
Finance Watcher Smell Blood 2, streaming negotiations between BET Plus and 2 rival platforms have reportedly stalled because potential partners want moral turpitude clauses Tyler-proofed. One executive leaked a term sheet showing a contingency for brand impairment triggered by litigation tied to coercive audition environments. Translation: if more victims step forward, those $100 million subscription projections evaporate. A Hollywood banking analyst puts it bluntly: studios are panic-proofed for box office bombs, not human rights implosions. We circle back to Atlanta, where a small but growing coalition of Black theater graduates is organizing under the anonymous banner Actors Still Matter. They claim graduates from historically Black colleges were lured with glossy flyers promising mentorship from Perry's producing corps, only to be offered unpaid mentee roles that involved late-night errands far from any camera. They're now recording testimonies and archiving emails bearing subject headers like special private coaching. One student recounts being asked to drive a guest to a secluded cabin for script revisions. When he balked, he was told it would prove his hunger for the craft. He quit the program and returned home, but the memory lingers like a bruise.
It was like, wow, for Diddy? What? That was a person that I looked up to. He was a mogul, and I listened to all the artists that he made superstars. And so to have a chance to be able to be signed to him, it was amazing. It was like, oh my God, I'm here. I finally did it.
As the outcry swells, we notice longtime allies tiptoeing away. Taraji P. Henson, once the face of Perry's revenge thriller, quietly scrubbed a behind-the-scenes Instagram reel filmed on that replica White House lawn. Idris Elba's publicist confirms he is unavailable for future Madea installments due to scheduling conflicts, though friends insist he cleared a 6-month window expressly for a sci-fi project. Alicia Rashad, who delivered stirring speeches at the studio's grand opening, abruptly canceled a commencement address at Spelman, citing the need for personal reflection. Reflecting on what, we ask? Oprah's predicament worsens when veteran journalist Demetria Lucas goes live on her channel and drops a bombshell. A former Harpo assistant claims she overheard a tense phone call between Perry and Winfrey's top legal counsel, strategizing how to minimize cross-exposure risk. No recording has surfaced, but Lucas doesn't back down and viewership skyrockets. Within an hour, Oprah What Do You Know trends higher than any sponsored Netflix trailer. We used to joke nothing could dent her brand. We are no longer sure. Quiet backstage corridors are now crowded with compliance auditors. We learn a major insurance carrier has declined to underwrite one of Perry's upcoming Christmas movies unless a third-party oversight panel signs off on every cast interaction policy. That panel reportedly wants unscripted access to those mysterious locked rooms. We can almost hear the panic in the boardroom when someone realizes a key holder went on sabbatical and no one else knows the backup code. We read another tidbit: property values surrounding the studio have dipped 3% in a fortnight. Real estate blogs blame market volatility, but homeowners whisper about tour buses idling outside the gates, passengers craning necks to spot potential walk of shame exits. Nightly drone footage surfaces on YouTube showing tinted SUV convoys entering side gates at twilight. What used to spark civic pride now carries an ominous charge. What secrets ride in those trucks?
So, Terrence Howard appeared on the PBD podcast with Patrick Bet-David, and the episode, this premiered on April 4th. Definitely making the rounds because in this episode, Terrence Howard describes an interaction with Diddy where he says that he believes that Diddy was trying to have sex with him. Let's take a listen.
Perry, for his part, attempts a counter-offensive. In an unprecedented move, he invites a small cadre of Black faith leaders for a closed-door prayer vigil under the stage lights of Talia Hall, a giant sanctuary set built for an unreleased gospel series. Cameras are barred, but a leaked itinerary reveals the vigil includes a renewal of purpose speech and, curiously, an NDA signing session disguised as confidentiality in spiritual counsel. One pastor leaves early, tweeting a cryptic Bible verse about wolves in sheep's clothing. The tweet vanishes within minutes, replaced by an apology, citing context confusion. But the screenshot travels faster than contrition. We scan the legal docket again. New filings hint that federal investigators might be reviewing interstate labor law violations, which means this no longer belongs solely to LA-based entertainment lawyers. If the case leaves Georgia jurisdiction, we could see depositions in Washington, D.C., and a Senate subcommittee itching for headlines. Imagine Madea memes splashed behind a row of stern-faced senators. Comedy of errors? Tragedy of power? Only history will decide. And remember those baby oil rumors swirling around Diddy? Parallel chatter now suggests boutique suppliers in nearby Decatur received bulk orders labeled therapeutic massage emollient from shell companies tied to Perry's corporate web. Coincidence? Possibly. Yet the optics are catastrophic. We confront a spokesperson who calls the claim defamatory nonsense before hanging up. Minutes later, their personal account locks down. Where there is frenetic damage control, there is usually smoke and maybe a roaring inferno.
When people are against the Illuminati, then they get punched in the face all the time. The press hates them, and nobody likes them.
The cultural fallout spills into academic circles. A media studies lecture at Howard University sparks a fiery debate. Can a pioneering Black institution become compromised when it embraces a single benefactor? The professor cites Tyler Perry's multi-million-dollar donation for a new soundstage-equipped arts wing still under construction. Students question whether that building might now signify complicity rather than progress. One senior quips, "It could end up the Bill Cosby Media Center too." Nobody laughs. Meanwhile, numbers from Perry's most recent Netflix drop appear healthy on the surface, top 10 in 20 countries, but analysts crunch retention data and find an abrupt plunge after episode 3. Viewers aren't finishing the season. Review sections are cluttered with variations of the same comment. Couldn't watch without thinking about those allegations. That's brand erosion in real time, and streaming giants are ruthless when the algorithm senses a taste shift. We catch wind of hush-hush phone calls between Perry's financial advisors and potential international buyers. Speculation points to a Middle Eastern media conglomerate sniffing around, curious about scooping up physical assets if litigation cripples the owner. But there's a sticking point. Moral reputation indemnity. In plain speak, they don't want to inherit a cursed castle. Our heads spin as we map the chain reaction. If Tyler Perry Studios topples, thousands of Georgia jobs hang in the balance. Productions from Marvel to indie rom-coms would scramble for replacement sets, and the state's tax credit glory might dim overnight. Atlanta could become the next cautionary tale, proving how a single giant's missteps can fracture an entire creative ecosystem. We can practically hear rival governors drafting incentive packages to lure those blockbusters away before the dust even settles.
Filed lawsuit accuses Tyler Perry of sexually assaulting an actor on one of the filmmaker's shows. Actor Derek Dixon has sued Perry for $260 million.
So where does this leave the fans? They're torn between nostalgia for Medea's wisecracks and a gut-level demand for decency. Some argue cancel culture punishes too fast. Others say silence enables harm. Churches that once hosted movie night fundraisers now hold town hall forums on spiritual accountability in entertainment. One grandmother in Columbia, South Carolina tells local news she boxed up her whole DVD collection until someone tells me those young actors are safe. These movies stay off my shelf. That's loyalty stretched to its limit. And for those actors still inside the labyrinth, word is the studio's internal phones now blast a motivational message every morning. Perry's baritone urging, "Stay focused, family. We will rise above." Yet sources reveal an alternate tape played for upper-tier managers, promising golden parachute clauses and in-house counseling should operations shut down. Two conflicting mantras under the same roof. Which one do we believe? We stand at the cliff's edge of clarity. One more whistleblower, one leaked security cam frame, and the glittering veil could rip wide open. Studios are bracing, investors are calculating, and those once untouchable alliances are creaking like old floorboards. Hollywood loves a redemption arc, but first it demands a confession. Public, raw, unforgettable. Will Tyler Perry step up to the mic and unburden decades of secrets? Will Oprah risk her empire to denounce a friend if the evidence lands on her desk? Or will they double down, gambling that nostalgia and money will drown out the noise?
I want to hear your music, so I come over there and I play the music, and he's sitting there, just looking at it, like waiting. Okay. So then my assistant was like, you know, he wants to hang out with you next week, and I was like, for what? He's like, I think he's trying to f you. That's what my assistant said. And I was like, oh, okay. Now I get it. So now no more communication.
All signs point to an inevitable showdown. Attorneys are sharpening cross-exams, journalists trade burner numbers with scared starlets, and fans clutch popcorn equal parts dread and curiosity. One thing is certain, Tyler Perry Studios was built to outshine rivals, but right now its floodlights illuminate every crack in the facade. The empire that once symbolized triumph could become a case study in unchecked authority if accountability does not arrive with dawn. We can almost hear the gavel poised to drop. Will it echo louder than Medea's legendary cackle? Will streaming platforms yank content overnight? Will a tearful public apology douse the flames, or only fan them higher? So buckle up, because the next headline could detonate by sunrise. Are we about to witness the biggest downfall in modern entertainment history, or will a last-minute power play keep the castle standing? Tell us what you think in the comments. Will truth prevail, or will Hollywood's brightest lights blind us once again? Until our next scandal-soaked rendezvous, stay curious, stay bold, and keep those receipts ready, because in Tinseltown, glitter and gloom dance just one step apart.